Hello and welcome to Hamer Reviews. My name is Christopher Hamer and today we're reviewing the Nikon 14 to 30mm f4S lens for the Z-mount series cameras. Now the Nikon 14 to 30mm was an interesting lens when I saw it on the roadmap. I've owned the 16 to 35mm f4 for many years and I'm hugely fond of it. I know that there's a group of people that don't seem to like the 16 to 35, but I've always got great quality images from mine and I've been very happy with it. So when I saw the 14 to 30 on the roadmap, I was very excited. Initially, when I bought my Z6, I was thinking I would get the Holy Trinity of 2.8, so the 14 to 24, the 24 to 70 and the 70 to 200. However, as I've got to know more and more of these lenses, I've actually decided that the f4 versions are probably more appropriate to me. For one, they're a lot more affordable, and that's saying something given how unaffordable they are. The 14 to 30 retails for just under £1,200 here in the UK. That's close to double what I paid for my 16 to 35 f4 for the f-mount. The 24 to 70 2.8 again costs £2,000, which is a lot more than the original 24 to 70 2.8 for the f-mount, and they followed that trend from the 70 to 200 2.8, which is even more unaffordable than the f-mount version was. So I've looked at the fact that the 14 to 24 is probably going to cost between £2,000 and £2,500. And I can't really justify £1,000 more for a lens just for one stop of light. So given I was so happy with the 16 to 35, I decided to take a closer look at the 14 to 30 and eventually took the plunge, buying my own copy about a month or so. Now I got this from Panamoz, not an endorsement as such, just saying that I got it from, so it's grey market, but it was a bit more affordable than the UK price and you get a 3-year guarantee and I'm quite happy with that. That's not a sponsorship or anything, I just quite like the service I got from them, so I thought I'd give them a shout out. And the lens arrived and I've been testing it out and I've been absolutely loving it. First off, the 2mm difference from 14 to 16mm is huge. You wouldn't think that it was, but actually when you get to using this, it makes a real difference in how your photographs look. It just gives you that little bit more width, which is just great for taking wide-angle shots. In addition, I really like the fact the autofocus is nice and fast, same as the 24 to 70 f4. And this lens is so small, it's really comparable to the 24 to 70 f4, and that's already tiny. It uses the same design whereby it actually folds out to be used. That's both negative and positive. It's great because it means more lenses fit in your bag in less space. It's negative in that it's probably drawing dust into the lens every time you do it, which isn't so fantastic. It makes the lens a little bit more fragile and you might miss a shot having to zoom out. However, with a ultra wide like this, you probably aren't going to use it on the fly as much, so it's less of an issue. It is also tiny. This 14 to 30, when I put it next to its 16 to 35 equivalent in its folded down format is, I mean, it's tiny, it really is. Even when it's extended outwards, that is a big difference. Interestingly, if I set this to 16mm, the front elements are still a couple of centimeters ahead on the 16 to 35, so they've definitely come up with a novel optical design. I like the fact also that this 14mm lens will take 82mm filters. The 14 to 24 2.8 f-mount lens has a bulbous front element, which means you can't screw filters onto it. You can on this. That's great for landscape photographers that want to use screw-in filters such as circular polarizers or neutral density filters. I'm going to do a more in-depth video comparing the quality of images from the 16 to 35 to the 14 to 30, so I won't give away too many spoilers, but it might not surprise you to hear that I think the quality of images that you're getting out of the 14 to 30 are just incredible, and that tallies with what I found with the 24 to 70, which was that the sharpness, the colours, the contrast is just way above what the f-mount equivalent lenses were. Interestingly, when you're using this, it actually goes to its shortest length whilst in use when it's at 30mm and actually extends out to 14. That matches what the front element does in the 16 to 35. As with the 24-70, you get a single control on here, which is auto and manual switch. You also have the control ring and you have the zoom ring. You do feel a decent amount of air shift through this lens when you're using it, i.e. folding it out. I'm not sure whether that's something to be concerned about long term. It's clearly letting a fair amount of air through the lens, but to be honest with you, I've never really found it to be a major issue in terms of dust inside Nikon lenses, so perhaps it's not something to worry about, but it's something I'm going to keep an eye on. The biggest thing when it comes to wide angles is distortion. And as with some of the other Nikon S lenses, for the Z mount, there's a lot of control that takes place in the camera or when you import photographs into Lightroom. Doesn't really bug me too much. I would probably apply those kind of changes anyway. So the fact that the camera's doing it automatically is great. Distortion's not bad. There's a bit of vignetting, especially as you get to sort of 5.6. But I kind of expect that in an ultra wide, so it doesn't bother me. I think the thing that really gets me of this is just the sharpness and the size of this lens for which you're getting the quality of images that you get out of it. Comes with a nice lens hood, obviously fairly shallow given how wide this is. But that's, you know, you can't use filters when you have the lens hood on because you won't be able to actually make any adjustments, so variable ones. As with the 24-70 f4S, it's made in Thailand. As I said in that review, it doesn't really bother me. It's where the lens is made, I find has very little implication on the actual quality of the lens. This one's very well made. Being the S-line, it's the upper tier of the Z-mount lenses. So it is well made. The materials are a mix of plastic and metal with a metal bayonet connection, which is good. The autofocus is quite quick. I'm not sure it's as quick as the 24-70, but I haven't found any issues with it. I can't see why you'd want a video with this, but if you are, then it's gonna be completely silent, which is good. And most importantly, when it's mounted to a Z6, it's actually fairly inobtrusive, which again is quite rare for this kind of lens. So definitely something that's a bit of a plus. So it's portable, it is fairly light, it has a great field of view. I do wish it went to 35mm because I did find myself using the 16 to 35 at 35 a fair bit, but that's one of those things. 30mm definitely feels a lot less zoomed in than the 30mm that this is capable of, but that's not a major issue. The control ring can be used to change aperture, to focus, or to change other settings depending on what you set it to in the menu. Personally, I use it for focusing, especially given this is more of a landscape lens. But overall, it's a really nice piece of glass. I can't get past the fact that it retails for, you know, almost £1,200 in the UK though. It is a lot of money for a lens that's f4. But I think we just have to accept that, unfortunately, Nikon's higher quality glass now has seen quite a price bump with the Z series. The optics are great. They're clearly brand new optical designs. There's no argument there. They've put a lot of research into these, so they are good. I think you just need to really weigh up what it's worth to you. As I mentioned in the video, there are other options in terms of where you buy it from that you might be able to get a better price. Though do be careful that you don't get scammed because there's nothing worse than that. I haven't seen a huge amount of these out there used yet, so you might need to wait a while if that's what you're waiting for. But yeah, overall, this is a great lens, and if you need an ultra wide on the Z series, I think it's a no-brainer. The only last thing that I will add is it's a shame that it doesn't have vibration reduction, which means it's less useful on something like the Z50, which doesn't have inbuilt image stabilization, but I think that's one of those things that Nikon just isn't putting in a lot of their lenses, other than the tele lenses and the DX lenses. So that's what I think of the 14 to 30 f4 line lens. Great piece of glass. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comments below. I'd really love to hear what you think, because I know it's a bit of a controversial lens, this one. I'll have the comparison video with the 16 to 35 coming soon. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do, especially then you won't miss that video as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope I see you again next time. Goodbye.